Hi crafty friend, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Adrienne Bosey of Alice Scraps Wonderland. Vicki Boutin is the newest licensed designer for Sizzix, and her first collection was released earlier this week. Vicki is known for her fun punch of colorful mixed media to every project, and while her focus is mostly on scrapbooking, that doesn't mean you can't use her newest collection for other fun crafts, such as mixed media panels, cards, tags, and more. So let's get into this tutorial. Here's the new Vicki Boutin Sizzix products that I'll be using today. I'm using 2 thinlit sets, 2 different Stamp and Framelit sets, and a stencil set for this layout. I've got all of these products plus everything else I used in this project listed in the description box below for you. And while we are creating a layout together today, my focus for this release is to show you the versatility you can get from Vicki's first collection with Sizzix. Not just with the types of projects you can make, but also the different ways you can use the Stamp and Framelit sets to create varying styles across your projects. But more on that later. In true Vicki fashion, I'm going to create a mixed media layout. You'll want to use a heavyweight white cardstock for this, and I've pulled out Scrapbook.com's white 12x12 mixed media cardstock. Ink smooshing is one of the easiest ways to create mixed media backgrounds. I'll be using several Tim Holtz Distress inks today, and first up is Mermaid Lagoon. Simply press your ink pad onto a glass craft mat and spritz some water onto it. Then use some plastic packaging to pick up some of that watery ink and smoosh it onto your white cardstock. Remember, when you use distressed products, it's all about building up layers and letting each layer dry before you start on another one. So you'll see me going back and forth between colors a lot here. I'm using some 8.5 by 11 inches of the same white cardstock from Scrapbook.com as well, cutting these in half. I'm using 3 of these cut sheets, and these are what we'll be die cutting the leaves and flowers from in the Stamp and Framelit sets. I use the same ink smooshing technique for Kitsch Flamingo, Saltwater Taffy, and Twisted Citron. You can see that this first round is really light, and eventually you'll see me re-inking my Kitsch Flamingo pad. You also want to make sure that you are cleaning up well in between each of the different colors. I like to use more water and one of the Scrapbook.com crafty cleanup cloths. And after doing an attempt at a second round of Kitsch Flamingo, you can see I re-ink the pad. It's a color I use often. After letting the ink soak into the pad for a minute, I give it another go with the ink smooshing, and you can see the color is much more vibrant this time. After adding a second round of ink smooshing to my 3 die cutting strips, I head back to my background paper with the blue. We're going to add a little bit of stenciling using Vicki's Buildables background number 1. These are some fun little patterns, and you can use a single one or pair them together for a fun geometrical punch to your background. I'm using just one today and sponged some prize ribbon ink through the stencil using one of my Sizzix making tools outfitted with the blending tool head accessory and foam sponge. I just randomly add some stenciling here and there, then clean off my stencil gently with a bit of water and a light wipe from my microfiber towel. I always love to add splattering to my mixed media backgrounds. So for the page background, I add a splatter of watered down Mermaid Lagoon. I'm using a large watercolor brush, loading it up with the watery ink, and then tapping it over a second brush over the cardstock. Then I do the same thing for the 3 strips I'll be die cutting from, again using Kitsch Flamingo, Saltwater Taffy, and Twisted Citron. To add a punch, I'm adding a splatter of a darker color to the 3 strips for die cutting. The Kitsch Flamingo background gets a splatter of worn lipstick, Saltwater Taffy gets a splatter of abandoned coral, and Twisted Citron is paired with mowed lawn. Now that the splatters on the 12x12 background are dry, I add a splatter of Scrapbook.com's white Lustre brush. I squeeze a bit out on my work surface, reload the brush, and tap it over the cardstock. This ink is semi-opaque when wet, but as it dries, you'll see it become completely opaque. So if you feel like nothing is really happening, just splatter and wait a minute or two for the magic to happen. While all those backgrounds dry, I work on matting my photo with some Sizzix cardstock. I chose a coral color from the Assorted Surfaces pack. Then I attached this adorable photo of my niece at the pool using some dotted adhesive. Now that I'm ready to die cut, I start pulling out the dies I'll be using. I chose Love and this from the Vicki Script No. 1 Thinlits, and all 3 of the double edgers dies. Since I've already added my dies to a magnetic sheet and I'm using so many, I don't place all of them on the gotcha stand. And we won't be using the stamps from the Stamp and Framelit sets today, but I just love these. Vicki hand drew all of these herself, and I can't wait to use the stamps in another project. Today though, I'll be using 2 of the leaf thinlits and several of the flowers from the Floral Layers No. 1 and Greenery Layers No. 1 sets. These double edgers are basically perfectly sized for a photo or a mat that is 6 inches long. I love that you get 2 different edges on either side of the 3 dies, so it's sort of like getting 6 in one set. I'm going to be cutting one of these double edgers from each of the 3 backgrounds I created for die cutting. This green is mostly going to be used for leaves and flower centers, while the pink and coral are for the flowers and the other 2 double edgers. I try out several different cutting pad combinations while cutting this super thick white cardstock with detailed dies, and here's what I found. If you use a self-healing cutting pad like the Magic Mat, you definitely want to run your dies through twice. I didn't the first time and had to free a few spots that didn't cut all the way through with my Sizzix craft knife. If you use 2 plastic cutting pads, I highly recommend using one pad as the pad you cut into and keep the other one clean. This will keep weird lines from pressing into your cardstock and creating unwanted texture or impressions on it. Be sure to flip or rotate your plates so you minimize warping. If you are cutting out just a couple of smaller dies, try the Sizzix circular cutting pads. These are made to help keep warping from happening as they have absolutely no straight edge. You'll see me use these later on in the cutting process, and I absolutely love them. I paired them with a standard plastic cutting pad. When cutting the double edgers, try to place your die a bit diagonally or your cardstock a bit diagonally. The straighter edges on these can lead to a heavier front load on your die cut machine when trying to roll it through, but by offsetting it a bit, your machine will have an easier time picking up a smaller corner. And make sure you place all of your die cuts somewhere safe until you are ready to glue the layers together. I'm using some stack and sort trays. If you are enjoying this tutorial, don't forget to give this video a like and to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to get more content like this. Now, let's talk about versatility. My goal is to show you several different types of projects using Vicki's first collection with Sizzix. Today, we are doing a scrapbook layout, but if you are more into mixed media panels, don't worry, I'll be doing one of my classic canvas type mixed media projects. If you are more into card making and tags, I'll be using Vicki's first release to create a mixed media tag. I'm a mixed media girly, so don't hold all the mixed media against me. My final project will be some sort of stitching project, something totally different. Now about that versatility, specifically of the Stamp and Framelit sets. These sets are designed for you to use however you want. You can stamp only, you can stamp and then die cut your stamped images out with the framelits, or you can use the thinlits to die cut only. As you can see, today we are only die cutting with the thinlits that are in this set. For the tag and mixed media canvas, I'll be stamping it and die cutting. I'm not sure if I'll be doing stamping for the stitching project yet, I just know I want some textiles and threads in this project. So even though you might feel these new Stamp and Framelit sets designed by Vicki are a bit more on the expensive side, I'll tell you that these are both on the larger side, and you get a stamp, framelit, and thinlit for each element in the set, giving you all that versatility. Plus, stamps and dies are something you can use over and over again, unlike a sheet of paper. And the greenery and floral motifs I think are something you can use in almost any project, making them a wonderful basic set to add to your stash. Now let's get to assembling layers and decorating this scrapbook page. I'm adding 2mm thick foam to the back of my matted photo, but I don't stick it down to the background yet. Instead, I turn my attention to my die cut sentiment, which I cut from the same coral cardstock as the photo mat. I cut each word 3 times, and I've already glued 2 of the layers together off camera. So let's glue the 3rd layer on together. I've placed some of the Sizzix Express glue into a smaller bottle to make it easier for me to handle as I have chronic pain. After adding glue, aligning the layers, and then pressing them together, I set them under a stamp block to help press those layers together really well. I'm also using the Sizzix Tim Holtz shaping kit to add a little dimension to these flowers. We don't want too much since this is a scrapbook page, but a little is nice to have. Start by using the largest size tool and holding it at a 45-degree angle. Roll the tool on the backside of the flower petals to warm up and soften the paper fibers. Then turn your petals over and press a smaller size tool into the center. I do the same with the smaller flowers and flower centers using some of the smaller sized tools. To get the most out of these double edgers die cuts, I cut them down the center so I get a strip with each of the 6 different edges. I attach 3 of these directly to the mat on the photo with liquid adhesive. I also don't line them up. I like the look of them being offset. I think I end up covering both ends with flowers, but it's the thought that counts, right? I add another little strip of foam to the back of these strips to help support it, and then place the photo and 3 edgers down on my blue and white background paper. Then I glue the other 3 edgers down directly on the background paper. When adding glue, only add it to the straight edge side so you can continue to layer the others underneath. I add the flower centers to the flowers with a small 2mm thick foam round. I didn't die cut the flower centers for the tiniest flowers as I wanted to just add a gem to the center for them. And this is optional, but I wanted just a bit of darkness to the edges of some of the petals of the flowers. I used Kitsch Flamingo, saltwater taffy, and twisted citron and edged the petals and leaves with the foam blending head tool. And you didn't see this on camera, but I also die cut some of the leaves from plain green cardstock from the same surfaces pack as the coral paper. I added some ink to these as well. They just make a lovely contrast to the softer ink background color leaves. I love to dry fit all of my embellishments and die cuts first. So here you can see me arranging the flowers and title to my liking. And I forgot to shape the leaves earlier, so I do that and then dry fit them to the layout. Once I'm happy, I begin adhering everything to the layout. These leaves get liquid glue and the flowers get 1 or 2mm foam or liquid adhesive. Adding varying heights gives your layers just a bit more oomph. For the title, I realize it's thin enough that I need to cut my 1/8 inch strips in half. I use 2mm foam where it rests over the background and 1mm foam where it overlaps the edges. Next, I add some green pink fresh gems to the centers of the smaller flowers. Then I dry fit and glue in place a bunch of the blue gems all over the layout. I just love the sparkle these bring, and I had a hard time stopping myself from adding even more than what I did. It's okay if you give me some side eye over that. I'll just take it as a compliment since too many sparkles never hurt anyone. Plus, Vicki is an absolute gem of a human being, and she deserves her flowers and sparkles for this first collection with Sizzix. And as a girl who absolutely loves flowers, I cannot tell you how much I love the greenery and floral layers sets designed by Vicki Boutin for Sizzix. These are definitely going to become a favorite of mine that I will come back to over and over, so be prepared to see these not just over the next month or two, but again and again this year. And that's it for this first project using the new Vicki Boutin Sizzix collection. I can't wait to see what you all create with this collection. And when you share, be sure to tag Sizzix and Vicki because everyone loves to ooh and ah over everyone's projects. I really do mean it. We are here to not only inspire you, but to hype you up too. And until next time, happy crafting.